Welcome to the Sip Revolution podcast, your ultimate destination for navigating the world of alcohol without surrendering the sips you enjoy. I'm your host, Salome, and I'm passionate about helping you reclaim control over your drinking. In this podcast, we're on a mission to equip you with practical, science-backed strategies that will help you transform your relationship with alcohol on your own terms. We will also uncover how society and the film industry often normalize and romanticize alcohol and the profound impact this has on our physiology and psychology. And we'll dig into the nitty-gritty of how alcohol affects your brain, both physically and mentally. So whether you're trying to cut back, moderate your intake, or simply gain a better understanding of your drinking habits, the Sip Revolution podcast is your partner in crime on this life-changing journey. So let's start this adventure together. Grab your favorite drink, or not, settle in, and let's sip our way to a healthier and wiser relationship with alcohol. Cheers to a new perspective on sipping. I wanted to talk about how I went from alcohol addiction to being what I call a normal drinker, which is for me, being able to drink in moderation effortlessly, not obsessing about alcohol all the time, and being able to have a couple of drinks and stop without it being a full-time job. In order to understand how I achieved this, I think it's important to have a brief understanding of how alcohol affects your brain and what happens in your brain when you drink alcohol. So, when you drink alcohol, your brain releases endorphins, which is a natural feel-good hormone. Endorphins basically float free in the brain until they meet an opioid receptor, which is a type of receptor that we have in the brain, specifically designed to unlock the effects of endorphins and other opioid-like substances. Endorphins bind themselves to these receptors, and this is what triggers this feel-good feeling. So it's not just the release of endorphins that make us feel good. The endorphins need to be on the receptor for us to feel their effect. It's like having the key of a house. You can have the key, but you won't be able to open the house until you find the lock and turn the key in the lock. So to recap, when you drink alcohol, your brain releases endorphins. The endorphins bind themselves to the endorphin receptors, which creates a rewarding effect. Now, for some people, this is just a, yeah, okay, that's nice effect. But for other people, it's like, oh wow, it's the best thing I ever experienced. It means that some reward systems are more intense or more efficient than others, and this is important. We are not equal. Our brains are all unique and don't react the same way to the same thing. For those of us who have a genetic predisposition to alcohol use disorder, we basically have a very strong reaction to this process, and we get an immense amount of reward, which makes us want more of the thing. I like to say that this group of people have a reward system that works really well, which is why they tend to drink more and have more difficulties to stop. The more we repeat the full process, the more the brain will learn this behavior and make it automatic by only keeping key components. At the beginning, the process is a long path that would look like this: going to the pub, ordering a drink, drinking the beer, releasing endorphins binding to the receptor, feeling good. With time, your brain learns to make a shortcut that looks like this. Seeing a pub is directly linked to feeling good. This is what is called creating a pathway, a very strong pathway in our brain that is a massive shortcut. This shortcut is so strong that all of the bad side effects are nothing in comparison. The hangovers, feeling sluggish, the weight gain, the relationship issues, the lack of productivity, all of these unwanted results are so small and weak compared to this massive pathway that says alcohol means reward, that the brain ignores them. At this stage, it becomes impossible to moderate because our brain basically knows the lesson too well. This is why I personally don't think that the traditional approach to alcohol use disorder, which just says stop drinking, is effective or sustainable. People who suffer from alcohol use disorder experienced biological changes in their brain, and abstaining from alcohol won't change that. Staying sober will prevent the unwanted side effect of drinking too much, but it won't remove the cravings and the obsession that usually comes with alcohol use disorder. A few years ago, I was in a tricky situation. I knew my relationship to alcohol was harmful, but I didn't want to give up alcohol. Sadly, it was the only advice that I could find. If you have an alcohol problem, you need to stop drinking. This wasn't a satisfying solution for me. I didn't want to spend my life saying no to alcohol when I wanted to say yes. And I also didn't want to stop drinking altogether. I enjoyed drinking socially, going to the pub with friends, going to a wine tasting, having champagne on my birthday. They weren't things that I wanted to remove from my life, and I refused to accept that I was an alcoholic and that the only solution for me was to abstain from alcohol forever. I desperately wanted to be normal. I spent a lot of time researching online until I found this life-changing method that I've been following for a little bit more than 2 years now. It is logical, easy to understand, and easy to follow. So what is this secret method? It is called the Sinclair method, and it is named after Dr. Sinclair, its creator. Dr. Sinclair understood that alcohol addiction was a learned behavior, so he searched for a way to unlearn it. He spent years studying how alcohol affects the brain, what behaviors are created by addiction, and how all of this translates in the brain. I won't go into too much detail in this episode, but this is how it works. Remember these endorphin receptors that create the reward effect when endorphins bind to them? Well, there is a medication called naltrexone, whose only purpose is to temporarily block these receptors. The protocol of the method is simple. I take an naltrexone tablet, I wait 1 hour to give it time to block the receptors, and then I drink alcohol. Endorphins are released, but they can't reach the receptors because they are already occupied by naltrexone. The reward effect can't happen, so the process is broken. I drink alcohol, but I don't get the end result, the feel-good effect. By repeating this process enough times, the brain will eventually erase the giant pathway that says alcohol equals reward. This is a slow, gradual, and non-traumatic process that brings your brain back to what it was before addiction. This is why I now consider myself a normal drinker. I can drink a couple of beers and stop effortlessly. I can spend days without even thinking about alcohol. I can have several bottles of wine in the house and not touch them for weeks. I'm just indifferent to alcohol. I can take it or leave it. The best part is that I have a choice. It is not an all or nothing kind of situation. It is important to understand that naltrexone is not a magic pill. You can't just pop a pill every day and expect your behavior to automatically adapt. The medication will take care of the biological part of the addiction, which gives us more strength and mental space to focus on the psychological part. Because the process is slow and works on a subconscious level, it gives us more time to gradually change our habits, develop coping mechanisms, and work on our belief system. For those who really want to improve their relationship with alcohol, the Sinclair method is an extremely promising way to address it. It has a 78% success rate, minimum, and it is the only scientifically proven method that helps you to safely reach moderate drinking. I hope you found this helpful and that you learned something today. Let me know in the comments if you already knew about the Sinclair method, if you tried it, or if you have any questions about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to learn more about my story and the science behind moderate drinking, download your free handbook in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, leave me a rating or a review. It helps us reach even more listeners and transform lives. I'll see you next time on the Sleep Revolution podcast.